Welcome to Dead Talk Live. I am your host, Viz. Our guest today is director-producer Danny Draven. His latest movie, Bad CGI Gator, is now streaming exclusively on the Full Moon Features streaming service. Danny, thank you for
Hello.
sitting down with us today. Bad CGI Gator is a fun film. Congratulations. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Now,
Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
it's our pleasure. For our
Mhm.
viewers that don't know, Full Moon Features is a streaming service available on all mobile and TV streaming devices. They offer a wide variety of primarily horror films. So it's available on your iPhone, Android, Roku, Apple TV, anywhere you want to check it out. And for those interested and want to give it a shot and not quite sure about it, Amazon Prime does offer a free 7-day trial. So you can check it out that way as well and check out Danny's movie, Bad CGI Gator. So, Danny, before we get into the film, how did you and Full Moon get acquainted with each other and start working with each other?
Well, it's a long history. I go back with Charlie Band and Full Moon at least more than 20 years. I directed my first movie for them over 20 years ago. So it's
Wow.
been a long time. Yeah. And I've
Wow.
directed and produced for them and edited for them and done all kinds of post material for them for a long time.
So
So
this is a
I don't know.
lifelong relationship
It's
with.
a lifelong relationship. Yeah, sure. Charlie and I are very good friends, and we have been for a long time. And occasionally, I make movies for him. Direct movies for him. I used to produce and direct them together back in the day, um, so sometimes they come up with these fun, bizarre
Yeah,
concepts, and
yeah.
sometimes I'm like, nah, and then I don't know something about it, seems kind of fun for me, to do, and I'm like, yeah, okay, why
Absolutely.
not? Let's go do it.
All right, so let's start with the title, Bad CGI Gator. Now, when I first saw this, I'm like, okay, I mean, at least they're being honest. Okay, this is going to be a
That's
fun ride.
right.
Now, you did not write this script. It was written by Zalman Band. Was that the original title of this film? How did that all come
Yeah.
about?
Well, full moon movies often start with the title and a piece, either a piece of art or a title. Usually, there's not even anything more than that. And the last film that I directed for Full Moon was called Ouija's Halloween Night. So imagine that title. And I was like, what? That's insane. It's called Halloween Night. So I was like, nah, and hung up the phone. And then I'm like, you know what? That could be kind of funny. So we had ended up making that film. But Bad CGI Gator with Full Moon, it's a very hooky kind of concept where so it's kind of like, Danny, we got this idea for this movie, and I was thinking about you to direct it. I was like, really? Okay, what is it? And he goes, Bad CGI Gator. And I go, man, I'm not going to do a movie called Bad CGI Gator. I was like, yeah, let me think about it. I don't know, click, So it was kind of one of those things where at first I was kind of like, no, I don't want to do it. And then we started to talk a little bit more about the concept and kind of what we were going to do as far as like, oh, well, it's going to be kind of spoopy. We're going to poke fun at things and it'll be fun. And, and I have a history of as an editor editing these big CGI movies for Sci-Fi Channel and a lot of other things. So I have a lot of experience behind the scenes doing it. So I was like, you know what, this could be kind of fun. And keep in mind, this was during a strike, so
Yeah.
nobody was doing anything. So it was kind of like, hey, nobody's doing anything. We're going to shoot this movie, and I shot it in 5 days. So it was something we were just going to do kind of very quickly. People are going to have a little fun while the strike was going on, and it kind of went from there. So it went from a goofy title to me kind of like, hey, you know what? Let's just have some fun with it, make something kind of funny, and get some people working, and just have a good time.
Now, you are an editor. You've edited a whole bunch of stuff. You did edit Bad CGI Gator as well. Now, as a director, it must be a big advantage for you knowing that you're going to be the one in that post production room editing this thing together when you're out in the field shooting it. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, it's 100% accurate. Yeah, no, it's a different experience. I mean, I've been editing films for a long time, over 20 years, and literally over 200 films. Not all have been credited for, because I had so many credits, I stopped taking them. So, whether it's for Sci-Fi Channel or Full Moon or a million other companies, I've cut Lifetime Christmas movies, anything you can think of. a ton of different genres. So yeah, when I direct, yeah, it is a little different. We do things a lot quicker, and we shoot just I shoot very little. I shoot what I need. Maybe a little extra here and there for certain things, but in general, we go through it relatively quickly. And in this case, in CGI Gator, um, because of my experience with visual effects and
Yeah.
in cutting these types of movies for Sci-Fi Channel, I knew exactly kind of what I needed to get um, for these interactions with the gator, because
Yeah.
there's no gator on set at all. There's nothing actually. There's no sand, maybe a sandbag every now and then or something to say, hey, he's over there, or he's over here, he's on the roof, or whatever it is. Um, so so yes, it is an advantage.
And it's extremely difficult for the actors as well because they have nothing to work off of except what the director gives them. So that's a big hats off
Mm-hmm.
to you in
Yeah,
making it
yeah,
possible for them to
yeah,
work out. Now,
for sure.
you've
Yeah.
directed quite a few films, but you've also produced 3 times as many films. You are a big time producer. Now, when it comes to you having to pick one or the other, do you love directing as much as you do producing? Do you desire more one over the other? What do you love doing?
I like directing more than producing for sure. And I enjoy the post production process more than the. I wouldn't say more than the production process, but production's rough.
Yeah,
It's a lot of long hours. It's hard work. It's hard on the body, hard on everybody. But it's part of the process. But I definitely enjoy the post process because I own a post company and I do a ton of post.
nice.
So I enjoy the post process immensely because I know there's so many things that I can do, especially now, things that we weren't able to do 15,
Oh
10,
yeah,
10 5 years ago, whatever, we can do now in post. So I love that process. And Gator, movies like Gator or any of these other films, they're all, a lot of them are reinvented in post. There's things that I didn't plan on doing on set. And then when I got in the post room, I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's have him I think let's have him fly, or let's have him go up
yeah.
here and switch over, and then I'm just going to have, I mean, some of that I've kind of thought about on set, and other stuff I just kind of invented in post, with our visual effects guy, and with just
Now,
just the whole process of it.
to stay true to the title, when you were in that post production room, did you sort of, for lack of a better term, dumb down the CGI effects to make him look wacky, to stay true to
Yeah.
the title, or not?
He actually, believe it or not, he actually looked better than we thought. I thought he was going to look. When we first started to do it, I'm kind of like, what kind of bad CGI are we talking about? Because I was like, is he going to be like a cartoon pasted on the frame, kind of going by, or is he going to be more like a 90s Sci-Fi Channel CGI? And I said, yeah, I think he wants. I said, so my example was, I said, look, I want him to be more like late 90s, Anaconda 3 kind of gator, or kind of reptile looking
Yeah.
CGI, from that era, the 90s era kind of stuff. So I think that's kind of what we got. So it wasn't like, it was somewhere in between, in between the look. And he's a real 3D model gator. It's not a.
Yeah.
I mean, these are not. Keep in mind, these are not like, these effects are, there was over 100 visual effects in this thing, and they were all, these shots are real 3D. It's a 3D model that has to be animated. It's on a special rig, so everything it's doing, between the running and the crouching and the jumping and all that stuff has to be animated. It has to be composited. It has to be
Oh yeah.
lit, specially lit, and then rendered out with the scales and the lighting and the scene and all that stuff. So I mean, there's a process to it.
It's
It
a lot
wasn't
of
just.
work. Yeah, it's a lot
It
of work.
was for this movie. Yeah, it was a lot of work. I mean, we're talking about a movie that was shot in 5 days. Posted in less than a month. I mean, I shot this
Wow.
movie in the end of August, and it came out, and it's supposed to come out on Halloween. It was actually done by Halloween, but it actually came out on Thanksgiving instead. But it was a very, very fast shoot and a very fast post process to it.
Definitely, definitely. It
That's what
reminds me
worked
of
out.
a
Yeah.
movie
So.
that came out in the late 80s, early 90s called Al. It was a made for TV movie where a dad of a family takes his little baby pet alligator, drops it down the toilet, goes into the sewer system, and grows into this gigantic beast.
Yeah,
A lot
sure.
of
Yeah.
Gator movies in the past. Now, there's an upward trend of these sort of outlandish horror movies that
Right.
border on the satire. Do
Sure.
you see that? They don't have, more filmmakers are not trying to fit their movies inside this predetermined box, and they're
Mm.
taking more liberties in satire and whatnot. Do you like
Yeah.
that trend?
I love the trend. I love comedy. Comedy is my favorite thing to make, especially when you combine comedy and horror. Because the Stuart Gordon used to always tell me, he was a mentor of mine. He used to always say like the antidote to fear is a laugh,
Yeah.
and because when we used to talk about Reanimator all the time, and I
Hmm.
kept asking how did that movie, so he used to give me all kinds of advice and tips over the years, and we made a movie together with Full Moon ages ago called Deathbed. And so him and I talked a lot about horror and comedy. And if you watch Reanimator, not only is it's a great freaking movie, but it's got a lot of those comic
Hmm.
relief moments in it. So we used to talk a lot about that. But I love combining horror and comedy together. Bad CGI Gator is more of a parody. It's more of a spoof. It's kind of like more of just any stereotype you can think of in horror movies, or whether it's the dumb kids and the bro and the whole everything they're doing in the movie. All this stuff is total ridiculous. It's supposed to be ridiculous. It's
Hmm.
supposed to be. You're supposed to just have a good time for 58 minutes. It's a very short movie, and it is what it is. It's just kind of fun little goofy
Exactly.
entertainment. So
Exactly.
and
Now,
I like that stuff, and I think it's good to have that mixed in with something, so you're not always watching the latest greatest Hollywood
exactly.
scare you
Exactly.
to death thing. So it's fun.
Absolutely. Now, when you first saw the script from Zalman, did you guys work together and what we ended up seeing on the screen was drastically different from the script? Or is what we see pretty true to the script that you originally read?
Well, I think generally speaking, when I do stuff with Full Moon, the script is more of a suggestion. So we're often in situations because we're making these so fast. And I mean, I'm talking about 20 pages a day, 15 pages a day.
Yeah.
Very, people, things going wrong left and right. Just general movie production stuff. So oftentimes, what's written, it just cannot be shot. I'm looking at the script. I'm like, yeah, we're not going to do that. So I'm like, okay, let's do this instead. He runs over here. You run over here. You say this. You say kind of what's on the page. Gator comes out of the lake. You run. It comes after your leg. Da da da. That's what we're going to do. Okay, great. And then we shoot it, and then we're done, and then we move on. Now, can you do that on a regular, bigger budgeted show or television? Hell no, you can't.
No.
So oftentimes those are the scenarios that play out with the Full Moon projects. So I'd say, yeah, I mean, is what scripted, what's there? Yeah, generally speaking, are there new lines and new situations that are in it what's scripted? Yeah, absolutely. I do a lot of improv, especially with the comedy stuff. So a lot of times the actors will come up with something, or I'll come up with something, or somebody else come up with something, and that stuff gets shot, and then of course you get it into post, and we snip it
Hmm.
together and use what works and what doesn't, and get a movie out of it. But do we follow line to line?
No.
Almost never. Almost
No.
never.
And you know what? It works for you. It really works
Yeah.
for you. You sound like a really fun director to work with, and I'm sure
Oh,
the
thank you.
actors love it. Now, the
Yeah, this has been
film
fun.
doesn't start with this mysterious huge gator in the backwoods of Georgia. You actually show us how this gator gets to be the size that it is. How did you come up with that concept on how you were going to grow this gator?
Well, that was Zalman. It was in the script that way. Zalman came up with the idea as far as him sort of like this. They have this moment of rebellion where they throw their laptop in the lake, which makes not much sense, but they throw it in there, and like most of these movies don't. That's kind of the joke. Is a lot of stuff that happens makes no sense.
Oh,
Like a
exactly.
lot.
That's a satire in it. Yeah.
These things make no sense. So he throws, and people are like, oh, the laptop's not even plugged in, so he gets electrocuted. I know exactly, right? So it makes no sense. So anyway, yeah, I mean, it's just like, okay, look, he's like this little gator, and we didn't want, at first it was supposed to be like a big old kill scene or something. I like, well, he's not bad CGI Gator yet, so we kind of just made it a little tease, and then he gets zapped, and then he becomes big, and then he gets sort of like summer kid or spring breaker hungry and starts going after each one of them. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of worked out that way, that he would get zapped and get bigger and then go after them all, and then at the end he would turn back.
And
I don't
you,
want to ruin it.
and you mentioned this to touch on other films like, the Frankenstein, Godzilla, Jaws. I saw a little bit of Evil Dead, Cabin in the Woods. Did you
Sure.
sort of grab concepts from all these classic horror films from the past and, sort of throw them in this pot, mix them together, and have some fun with it?
I think so. I think he did. I think we all did when we were making it. I mean, it's just any little sort of horror film stereotype, whether the lake, the kids, the goofiness of just it all, and I mean, they're silly reactions to things. Like, clearly she would have like one girl loses her leg and she's like bleeding out like the whole movie. Like, she would have died like in 30 seconds.
Exactly.
But like the whole time she's just bleeding and she's like, oh my god, and then they're like, oh, put her back. And we're kind of making fun of the sort of that generation
Yeah.
in general, that sort of, everybody's Instagramming each other and everything all the time, kind of thing. So, maybe it's, I guess in a way it's a little bit of a social commentary too, I guess in some ways. But that we just had fun with it. And I'm
Now,
glad
it
we
sounds
got
from
some
what
laughs.
you were saying, you just let the actors go and let them do their thing, and they looked like they had a blast. It looked very
They did.
relaxed,
Mhm.
and they had a lot of fun with it, and that allowed them to, I don't know, it brought something to the film, like this untangible thing that made it that
Mhm.
much fun. Uh, how do you create that environment? Do you tell them, listen, here are just a couple lines, here's a scenario, I want you guys to just run with it, and let's see what we come up with?
Yeah, no, I do, and I mean, my when I direct, I'm like that, very much more of a little bit more of like an actor director kind of guy, but I'm still kind of on the technical side too. So I kind of try to combine those two together, and I know what I need technically, but also know how to kind of let the actors do what they do. And I think with them, they all had a blast.
Yeah.
But we were able to give them scenarios, and I always like to give them enough freedom to kind of do their own thing. Like, they'll do one thing and then they'll say, hey, what if I said this, or what if I stood over here? I say, okay, that's great, that works. Does that work technically for us? Yeah, great. Okay. And then they do it, and 9 times out of 10 it's a great idea, and it's even funnier. And filmmaking is a collaborative art form. So
Yeah.
the more in my case, when I make movies, I collaborate a lot more with the actors. I like to collaborate more with them because I like to see
Yeah.
what their ideas are. And you don't always get to do that. And I know some of them commented like, "Gosh, this is so cool because we're not used to being able to have our own ideas and collaborate. It's usually the director wants us to do it this way and say a line this way." And I'm like, yeah, to me that's not really directing and making a movie.
No.
It's more of us getting together and making a film. And if they have a good idea, if it's a good idea, we do it. Sometimes it's not always a good idea.
No, no.
And I tell her, like, well, I don't know, maybe not, or we'll do it twice. We'll do it once, twice, and the best way wins in post, kind of thing.
Exactly. Now, talking about posts, you mentioned this. The alligator is seen out of the water, but swimming in the air. I thought that was brilliant. Now, is that something that you thought of that you were going to do while filming in those 5 days? Or is that something purely that came to life in post production?
I think a little of both. I mean, I think there was the idea that, okay, we'll make him do kind of some ridiculous stuff. Flying was one of them. Like, okay, maybe he can just kind of wiggle around in the air and kind of float around. Now when and where in the movie wasn't always determined. I kind of just made it up as when in post, like, okay, maybe he's on the roof and maybe I'll have him float down, or I think in front of the window, that was always planned. He'd be floating in front of the window, that kind of thing. But I wasn't really sure how that was going to look either. So, until I got into post and was like, that's kind of funny. I like what he's doing. So then I was able to have him do more things in post once I saw him do whatever trick it was.
Yeah.
So, like, he rings the doorbell, he stands on his back legs and like a person, I mean, he does things that are, that
Yeah, just
not supposed to
ridiculous.
do.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
ridiculous. But I think some of that stuff wasn't planned on set. I knew where the alligator was going to be. I knew kind of generally what he would be doing, but I didn't really know necessarily how he was I mean, I knew what what he was going to look like as far as like the model we were using
Yeah.
because art was established, but whether or not what he was going to look like when he stood up or and how that was going to look with his head and so on and so forth. I had a general idea, but until we got into post and my visual effects artist Dave Matherly did the effects for it until I saw like, hey, he's like, oh, I can make him do this, and he crouch up, and like when he eats the guy and
Yeah.
his whole belly comes
Yeah.
out for a moment and goes down. I mean, those things are those things are not something you just kind of type in and like,
No.
hey, some AI does it for you. Those are real
Oh yeah.
effects that had to be done. So it was a very there was a lot of work that went into as short as the movie is, there was a lot of work that went into the
Absolutely.
visual effects and the music creation and everything. I mean,
Definitely.
there's a lot going on
And
there.
speaking of the score, it does have a great score. Now, before I let you go, I found myself really liking Sam and Hope's characters to where I was really pulling for them by the end of the film. When you were casting the movie, did you cast Michael and Maddie in those roles because they had good on-screen chemistry with each other?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I did. I had to fight for some of them, too, because there was some, always some disagreements like on who you think is best, whether it's one or the other, and but I think Michael and Michael is great. He's a wonderful actor. They're all wonderful actors, and I got all the ones I wanted. So that was good, and I knew that they would all be the right choice
Yeah.
for these characters. Once I saw their audition, I mean, like Ben, when he auditioned, I was like, I try not to do callbacks because I usually know in the first like 10, 15 seconds if I'm going to cast somebody. I've always kind of been like that. So I saw him. He did the lines. I was like, oh, there's our Chad, and then I was like, oh, there's our Pierce, and there's the other girl. So a lot of them were just very quick. There was a ton of submissions too. I'm talking thousands of people that submitted
Yeah.
for these parts. But when it came down to the final folks, I mean, it was pretty certain from the get go who I was who was going to cast.
Well, great job. I want to thank you again. Guys, the film is called Bad CGI Gator. And if you're looking for it, again, it is streaming on Full Moon Features streaming service. You're not going to find it anywhere else. And if you want to try out Full Moon Features before actually committing to subscribing, Amazon Prime does offer a 7-day trial where you can check out Bad CGI Gator and its other libraries. So check it out. I want to thank our guest again, director, producer, editor Danny Draven. I
Thank
want to
you.
thank our audience, those of you who tuned in live and those who will be watching this later on. On behalf of Danny and myself, stay safe, stay walking. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you very much. Goodbye.